Issue of nature and biodiversity, gender equality, ocean and coastal zones, as well as indigenous people are the topics that are making rounds in COP today. And on the streets of COP29, we're here to speak with mostly indigenous people and gender activists to know their thoughts if these issues make round in plenary. And we'll find out from them what they think about gender inclusion, as well as the protection of ocean and marine lives. Let's go.
This is a very hot topic for us. I'm part of the Southampton Marine and Maritime Institute, and we've recently looked at the ocean economy generally and blue economy in particular, which is a concept which merges the economy and sustainable development basically around the ocean. And we're looking at the shifting, the effects of climate change on the ocean economy, and we're forecasting shifting hotspots around the ocean, basically looking at the resources. Where we've seen, for example, some emerging technologies that are happening, like offshore wind, for example, or aquaculture, and moving away from and declining economies like the oil and gas sector and so on. But there's also impacts of climate change of other resources like fisheries due to climate change. So we're looking at who will be the biggest winner, who will be the biggest losers, how this could lead to how this could put tension and strain on the existing regulatory frameworks. And the concern basically for me personally is we need to reevaluate those frameworks to ensure that they're fit for purpose and that justice is preserved, and that we create a world that's peaceful as well. So we need to learn from our mistakes from other industries that were happening on land, but also in the ocean, that have led to unsustainable practices, but also conflicts.
Well, these are really essential aspects: gender equality, indigenous rights, really essential aspects to climate solutions, which is what we really need to be focusing on here at COP29 and in addressing the climate crisis. And we see time and time again how women in communities all across the world are leading their communities in responding to the climate crisis, addressing, extraction, and developing and building the solutions that are necessary on the ground to address the global climate crisis. There are not enough conversations happening around gender here at COP. And in fact, gender, human rights, indigenous rights, a lot of the parties are seeking to strike these already, even though they have set precedent in the Paris Climate Agreement, in other negotiations. They're seeking to strike gender, indigenous rights, human rights from the record, right, from these negotiations, from these texts, because they don't want to be held accountable. But we know that we need a rights-based approach to ensure that there is justice in these climate negotiations.
For me, I come from a country that is heavily forested, rich in forest. In fact, we host the highest amount of forest in the Upper Guinea region, 42%. We are of the opinion that rights of local communities should be respected in any forest initiative. So we appreciate the decision that has been reached in just ended Biodiversity COP to protect and respect the rights of indigenous people. We support that. As Liberia, we also have key instruments that support local community rights, which we endeavor to ensure that it's recognized also through doing any initiative around climate change mitigation.
For the longest time, we have been asking as an organization, but also as a constituency, we have been asking parties to prioritize gender-just climate solutions and making sure that all conversation around COP and decision that really center gender-responsive approaches and the mainstream gender in all agenda items. But that the progress has been slow over the years, and that really is what we are here to make sure that the parties and government and everyone really prioritize gender in the climate action. Nature and biodiversity is why we're here. Like everyone's need nature and biodiversity. Like our livelihood depends directly on the health of the planet. However, when it comes to gender, we have seen most women are the custodian of nature as compared to the other gender. Most women have directly relationships. So, for example, you'll see in most of our African countries, women will be the one protecting the environment, doing restoration work or doing like small-scale farming, as compared with our brothers and our fathers who most of the times they will, for example, migrate to town to do some white-collar job. So there have been like a direct relationship between nature and gender, and hence when nature is being destroyed, the first gender to bear the burden of the destruction of nature are the women, because their livelihoods directly depend on nature.
We're one and the same. Indigenous rights and rights of nature are intertwined in everything from the beginning of our lives and until way beyond the time that we're gone. You mentioned also the biodiversity, and it's also really important to me to help people understand that we have to stay away from the false solutions as Indigenous people, like the biodiversity credits, the carbon market, and those kind of things that cause nature to be bundled, commodified, and sold. They should have been called out. They should have been raised better. We've been raised to understand that all life is important, and in this particular time in history, Indigenous people's voices are necessary if the human race wants to continue to be part of the biosphere that they call Earth.
Many gender justice advocates, Indigenous people, and those who fight for the rights of the ocean have argued that these topics do not make rounds in plenary. There are concerns if their issues will be discussed in the forthcoming COP. You've heard from people on the streets of COP29 what these issues mean to them. We do hope that in Brazil next year, the issue of gender equality, Indigenous people's rights, and the ocean will make rounds. From COP29 here in Baku, Azerbaijan, I am Kome Odomo for HOMEF TV.